G'day guys, my name is Bruce. I'm one of the community members and I was asked by Bubblegum to sit down and try and, I guess, facilitate a bit of a chat around consent and consent at the event, consent of the community. And so we figured we'd just sit down and have that conversation rather than just one person talking at camera. It might be a bit more interesting. So Bubblegum, I'd say thank you for joining me, but it's more I'm joining you. How long have you been part of Blaze? Give me a bit of an intro, a bit of an overview as to you.
Yeah, okay. I've been going to Blaze since 2018.
Oh, same year. That's when I went.
Wow, yeah. And I guess I'm probably better known as Ranger Bubblegum.
Yep.
I work in the Ranger Ops team, been with Intelligent Deviant for a few years, had my own theme camp last year, the Drawing Room.
Yep. So you've been in the community a fair amount of time?
Yeah, and a Blazing Swan member too.
Yeah,
so.
Nice to hear.
Yeah.
And this year are you lead or co-lead for the consent crew?
Yes, so Jess is sort of leading consent overall. Jess, lovely treasurer.
Yep.
And then we've got consent kind of split into two streams.
Mm-hmm.
Jess is leading the response team. So if there was an incident that was consent related, we have an on-call person that will be there to support and advocate for that person.
Yep. And that's separate to Rangers now?
Yes, it's just, the Rangers will still be involved,
mm-hmm.
But it's sort of like having a person to advocate for that person in need.
So as a bubble, consent crew is new this year?
Yes.
How many people? What does that look like?
Oh, it's still in flux.
Yep, as is the world of Blaze.
Yeah, as we currently stand, we've probably got about 15 or so people,
Oh, wow.
But we're looking for more people to cover our roster.
Yep, so if people listen to this and they want to know more or join up, how do they do that?
Yeah, so there were a few posts on the community page, but there's also a link to the volunteer form on the Blazing Swan website.
And I guess they can just email volunteers@blazingswan.com.au.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so let's go rather than the call to action. And so you've got 15 people. Mm-hmm. Consent crew is new.
Yep.
What do you do? What does consent crew do?
Yeah, so I guess the consent crew is kind of like my side of the team. Mm-hmm. So I guess we're sort of education, but maybe consent culture.
Yep.
And so you'll be able to easily identify us at the event. We'll be wearing some really cool pink t-shirts, so you'll really be able to see us. And we're just wandering around the event, having friendly chats with people. People might ask us who we are, what we're doing, so we'll, talk briefly with them about consent and consent at the event. And we're also there for someone who might be feeling, they've had a consent violation, I guess, or something that they're concerned about. They can come to us and we'll be a friendly ear to listen.
Yeah.
And if we need to escalate it, we will. But yeah, essentially, we could be seen as similar to Rangers, but just focusing on consent.
Yeah. Gotcha. A bit fluffier, a bit nicer. I don't want to bag Rangers.
Yeah. Brighter uniform.
Brighter.
Yeah.
Roger. So this is a change. Mm-hmm. How did it come about? What's the background what's the background for consent crew?
Yeah, I guess a multitude of things. Mm-hmm. We've had consent as the 11th principle for quite some time.
Yeah. I think that was even before 2018 when we were.
I think so too. Yeah. So, but we sort of instilled it as a principle, but it's really just sort of sat there with its paragraph as to, what it all means. But we haven't really done anything further with it in terms of embedding it into not just at the event, but embracing it as a part of our culture, you know, at our fundraisers, that sort of thing as well. Obviously, you know, there's been breaches of consent, you know, things like photography. There's been a recent post about, you know, the nudie run around the effigy, and then more serious things. So it's baby steps, but I'm really excited with, you know, what we've got going on this year. There's also going to be some fun workshops happening too.
Okay, what sort of stuff are you envisioning there?
So consent is going to be based in Centre Kiosk. So Centre Kiosk is new for this year too. And we've got on Friday, Saturday and Sunday, we're going to be having crafting and consent. So we're going to do some really cool crafting. We've got badges, we've got little backpacks that you can use as moot bags. And we're going to do some jewellery making and then just invite, you know, conversations about what consent means to people, that sort of stuff.
So I guess I saw some stuff online. There was a lot more around consent consent crew being seen as police.
Yeah.
And from what you're saying, it seems like it's a fair pitch away from that. It's more, I guess, opening conversations, education and support. Is that kind of a good summary, or I missed something?
Yeah, definitely the opposite to the police.
Yeah.
And it's certainly not our intention to be, you know, patrolling the event, looking for consent violations and issuing people with tickets. Yeah. It's just really encouraging people to talk about consent so that it becomes a normal part of everyday conversation and a way of being, and being a safe space for people too. So
awesome. Talking around consent itself.
Yeah.
Can we just dive into a little bit? It's a complex issue. It's both black and white and has grey, and I guess that's why the consent crew has come around. Can we just talk through some basics around consent?
Yeah, I guess maybe if we focus on the event. So, you know, hopefully most people within our community have some sort of basic understanding of what consent means.
And I think the thing is, we always have new people who come to the event, and consent is something that exists in day-to-day life, perhaps just not always dealt with it the same way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess, you know, Blazing Swan, the event, is this amazing wonderland where it's just, you know, a place where people come to perhaps be something that they're not in their everyday world. They might wear completely different things or wear nothing at all. And they want to be free to radically express themselves without fear of someone, you know, photographing that or taking a video and then sharing it to the outside world, or even just taking a photo and keeping it for themselves.
But consent doesn't just cover photography, right? It covers a lot more.
Absolutely. You know, you'll see at Blaze, there's probably a lot more hugging happening than you would see
it was definitely,
in your everyday life.
When I went in 2018, it was like, I would consider myself a pretty open and friendly person. The hug thing, it was something that I just, like, now it's part of my like normal life, but yeah, it's definitely, there's a bit more physical hugging that goes on, right?
Yeah, bit of a love fest.
Yeah, I'm not that much of a hippie, but I think it's good to connect with people. But at the same time, it's important that not everyone's a hugger. And so it's important that you kind of make sure that you're okay to hug. Because it's like, there's noisy environments, it's dark in places, there's not, you know, light's weird, you know, and let's face it, we all have a beer time. And so it's not always easy to read the opposing person, or it can be misinterpreted as a genuine misinterpretation. But it is important to try and respect other people and that sort of thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, not everyone loves hugs.
No.
And someone might love a hug, but they
Not from that
might
person.
not love a hug from me
Yeah.
or you, for
Oh, yeah.
example. And
Gingers don't always get the hugs.
also, I guess, yeah, it depends on the situation. Yeah, if it's late at night and it's dark and someone's feeling vulnerable, and they might also be in a situation where they feel cornered or they feel like they can't say no, like they
Yeah.
don't really want that hug, but perhaps they've hugged you before and, you know, it's
Your
almost
mood
implied.
can change, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not just this has happened before, everything's A-okay and tick the box. Like, things change day to day. You could have had, like, I think Blaze, as you say, is this different space, right? And you go away for, I mean, some people were there for a couple of weeks or longer, and other people are only there for like a weekend, but it is this different space where time kind of disappears. It's a bit different.
Yeah.
And so somebody can have a bad day and just like, hey, I don't want to be around you, I don't want to see you, I don't want to, it's not
Yeah.
necessarily to do with you, it's just, you know, how they feel, and you've got to be respectful of that situation.
Yeah, I think also understanding that something might not be a big deal for you,
Yeah.
but it's a big deal for someone
Yeah.
else.
Because we do have a lot of neurodiverse people in the
Yeah.
community as well.
Hello.
And so, yeah, a lot. And so even things like the touch sensation sometimes is good, sometimes not so good.
Yeah.
Like, even like, I can't speak from experience, but autism has that sort of stuff as well. So yeah, tricky.
Yeah, many
So how do
factors.
we navigate that constantly moving, changing environment or situation?
Yeah, gosh. I mean, it is difficult. I mean,
Yeah.
if you don't know the person and someone's introducing themselves, you might be like, oh, are you a hugger?
Yep.
But you know, even you know, if I'm approaching you, we know each other, we've hugged before, but you know, maybe perhaps rather than just lunging in,
Yeah.
you might sort of, hey. But yeah, definitely, I think you know, giving the person time to respond to,
Yeah.
not just jumping on someone
And I
unawares.
think, sorry, I didn't
Yeah.
mean to interrupt you. I think the other thing is, like, we're talking about an easy situation where you're just out and about day to day, but when you enter into some of the theme camps, it becomes a bit trickier.
Yeah, I mean, and some of the theme camps, you know, there's this element of play
Yep.
and touch, but just because someone is in that camp doesn't
Yeah.
give you free rein to, you know, hug someone, grope them, spank them without asking. So,
I think one thing that struck me on my first trip to Blaze was I really noticed that there's a difference in nudity and sexuality. Like, just because you're naked doesn't make it sexual, and just because you're clothed doesn't remove the sexuality side of things as well.
yeah,
So yeah, theme camps, and they do range a lot, right? Like, in as to what goes on, but you still need to be, again, keep using the word, respectful for other people, right?
yeah. I think, you know, kink and that sort of thing,
Yep.
they do it really well with consent.
Yes.
So it's just perhaps outside of that
Yeah.
for us to lift our game.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a situation where I was on a dance floor and somebody touched me from behind, and the look I gave them probably like put them back to, and they were quite apologetic. But you can, it's easy if you're not careful, and that's not by any means an excuse, but you can get carried away with things if you're having a good time. And so
Yeah.
you need to be thoughtful of people around you in those spaces.
Yeah, I guess, and just be conscious of, people, whether, you know, if you sort of keep trying to approach this same person that you're super keen on,
Yeah.
and you're kind of wondering why, I'm not really getting anything back from this. Perhaps,
Sometimes
you know,
it's the politeness of just like, I don't want to say no, but that doesn't mean it's a yes. It's just like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Silence does not
No.
mean yes. And also someone sort of can't be coerced into saying yes because they've just had enough of your,
Yeah.
constant asking. So
Yeah, and so I guess that's probably a good switch into, we've done the kind of the day-to-day and open, and we're moving more into, I guess, what would be a nighttime situation.
Mm-hmm.
People do get physically involved with other people at Blazing Swan. That's a thing, as it is in the rest of the world. Any thoughts around how we navigate those particular circumstances?
Well, I mean, you have to ask for consent for various things. It's not just a set and forget kind of thing, but also you need to assess whether the person is in a state to consent as well.
Yeah, I was thinking about this whilst we were kind of preparing for this chat. And I was thinking along the lines of like, just because the other person says okay, sometimes they're not in the right position to actually give themselves consent. And sometimes you need to think about how you as an individual receive that consent, because it might not be appropriate, right? You might actually have to be the bigger person and say, no, this is not a situation that I'm willing to enter into.
Well, surely the situation will be nicer when both of you are in a state to really enjoy that, remember it.
Yeah.
So I think it's about being a responsible human and knowing if this person can actually consent. Obviously, drunk, altered in some way, unconscious, sleeping. If you're sleeping in a tent with somebody and they're passed out, or they're just asleep, that person can't consent. I know it seems obvious, but
no, I think sometimes we need to state these things, unfortunately. But it does lead nicely into a kind of segue into looking out for other people. So you're looking after your mates.
Yeah, I guess we kind of call it bystander intervention, but it's really just caring for our community, being a good human. If you see someone that may be stumbling home or they appear to be in a situation where they might be a little bit uncomfortable, it might just be, going up and say, hey, how's it going? And just trying to assess what's happening there. But calling out your mates if they're sort of, carrying on and perhaps talking about something that is a bit off. And not being afraid to just speak to someone. Perhaps you are seeing someone who might be taking a photo at the effigy after the burn. It's about this whole slogan that we have of each one teach one. And there are new people who just, I guess, don't realise the importance of those sorts of things.
So photography, I've skipped over it a couple of times, but I want to go back to that because it's now cropped up a couple of times. And obviously photography gets brought up in a lot of context around official photographers, people with cameras, right? But it's not just cameras, it's people with mobile phones is more and more prevalent, right? And I guess there's a balance with consent about capturing the moment, but also recognizing what's around you and who you're capturing and what they're doing. And that's right.
I guess we talked about it earlier as well, that people come to the event and they just want to be free and have this week where they can participate without having
normal life.
So they're not going there to have that week recorded.
There are some people who actively cut comms, they're away, they don't record anything. It's it's a decompression from real world thing.
Yeah,
And there are other people who want to document everything.
Yeah, I guess that's for me the beauty of our official photographers. You can, trust in the fact that they're going to have photos of the effigy, of the temple, of really what the event was about. And, you don't really need to be carrying your phone around recording things.
Another thing to get lost.
But maybe that's a generational thing as well.
Don't make me feel old. Okay, so we've talked around like what is consent. We've talked around like kind of the intricacies of how to have those consent conversations. We've talked around like the intervention, like looking out for people. Should something happen, where should people look for help?
Yeah, I guess there's a range of things that can happen. To seek help is, firstly, you could seek help from friends and bystanders as an immediate thing. But then you can look out for the consent crew in their pink tops. Most importantly, rangers. They're covering the event 24/7, and particularly at night time, there's going to be a couple of groups out there. They go out in pairs. Also, at a lot of theme camps and out and about, you might see some people in a pink lanyard. They're kind of like our consent allies.
Oh, right, okay.
Yes, so they're also attending our training that we're running, and they're kind of like, I guess, a human safety house where if you're feeling a little unsafe or feeling a little icky, like someone's just not leaving you alone, you can approach that person and know that they're going to look out for you, and they can then call the consent crew or rangers, or perhaps, that moment will pass after you've spent a few minutes.
And where are those people?
Look, I'm not really sure where all our consent allies are coming from. A lot of them are coming from theme camps, but really if you see someone in the pink lanyard, you can go to them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything that we haven't chatted around that you want to have a chat I might have missed?
Oh gosh, not that I can really think of, but I guess, if you have questions, then that's what the consent crew is there for. And yeah, come to our workshops. Come and make some badges. So
the workshops will be in the WTF, I assume?
Yes.
Super.
We've also got something fun happening at Coasis on the Thursday, to be determined as to what.
The floating world of Blaze.
Yes, it involves a bit of song, a bit of storytelling.
Okay. Sounds interesting.
Yeah, consent-based. And then our friends at the Church of Belligerents will be doing something on Friday night.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Cool.
Should be fun.
Well, I think that's probably a good way to wrap things up. I guess thank you if you've got this far in the video for tuning in. If you want to find out more, then Bubblegum is a good point of contact.
Yes.
Have you got an email that people can grab you on? Are you a consent at Blazing Swan or something?
We do have a consent at Blazing Swan. It doesn't go to me.
As long as
but
you
can send it there, or you can send it to Marie at Blazing Swan as well.
Super. Well, thank you very much for watching. Thank you for letting me guide this conversation. Hopefully I've done okay.
Yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to do this video.
No stress.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.